Right, well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me, Dane. Who are you? And well, introduce yourself, I guess,
Yeah,
to
sure,
the
man.
audience.
Thanks for having me. I'm a concept artist and I just work on films. I predominantly draw monsters and creatures and stuff, but sort of a bit of a gun for hire. So you can find me on some random stuff as well. So, but yeah,
And I guess, well, more prominently, today specifically, we'll be looking at Alien Romulus. But it's not just Alien Romulus that you've worked on, is it?
yeah, I was lucky enough to do Alien Covenant as well, and obviously, you never really know how those movies are going to turn out. But working with Ridley Scott was probably. Oh, look, Alien is my favorite film, so working with Ridley Scott was just not only an honor, but it was. I'm just going to be honest, it was a dream come true. Having
Mm.
casual conversations about Giga, and it was the best, man. Also, I had like the crown jewel of the job. To doing those, I was doing life drawing. Those life drawings in David's lab and in his living quarters with another artist named Matt Haddon.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I think those things captured the imagination of most people. To be honest, yeah, pretty
it's
insane thing.
yeah. People reach out and people have decoded the words I put in there. Heaps of Slayer lyrics that I changed into Latin. Heaps of like hidden little meanings and stuff, and people crack and decode them. And I remember seeing RJ Midi from Breaking Bad and I met him. I said, "Hey man, how are you?" And he goes, "You're the guy that did all those codes in the Alien movie." I was like, "Oh shit, yeah, man, that's all right. Yeah, wow." So that was my, next to Ridley Scott. That's the peak fame.
Yeah. No. Wow. Okay. Um. So ladies and gents watching this, bit of background, of course. Concept artists are, uh, I guess, from my perspective, are essentially like the unsung heroes. I think personally, of a lot of movies. I mean, seldom does a concept artist get the recognition they deserve. But bringing that sort of art to life, you're influential, really, in building lore. I think to these universes.
Yeah, man. Thanks for saying that. And I think if you're lucky, that's the role you get to play. Sometimes I've done like a Pirates of the Caribbean movie where you're like a nothing. You're just a mouthpiece for
Mm.
other people. But then, on like Fury Road or oh, geez, man, I've been really lucky, man. And even some Marvel stuff that I would think I would just be a mouthpiece, I've been able to run wild and absolutely best case scenario, you kind of affect the script, or you'll do something that the director reacts to, and they actually incorporate it into the story. And or
Mm.
Romulus, Fede was just 100% wanted to collaborate. He wanted to know what I thought, which man, I mean, directors that don't have like suffocating egos, they're a rarity, and he
Mm.
certainly does not, man. He was into inviting all of the whole team. He was just like a fan, man. It was so good, such a good experience. So yes, we do get to influence the law at the best of times. At the worst of times, I'm drawing swords for some fucking idiot.
Just a random
Anyway,
item.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for saying so.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think having a conversation with someone who can influence a movie again at the best of times to such a degree, yeah, I think is quite fascinating. And tell me about Alien Romulus. Tell me about how that all came to be. Tell me about the circumstance of you hopping on board.
Well, I'm pretty sure people would assume that because I'd got a bit of alien pedigree, that I might have been invited, but that's not how it worked. I did Mortal Kombat with the production designer Naaman Marshall, and I had actually heard from another production designer, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the filmmaking process, but a production designer kind of oversees, like, they're sort of the eye of all of the creative visual ideas,
Mm.
like they'll sort of and then sort of meter it out to whoever's going to handle it the best, And Naaman was that on Romulus. There was another production designer that nearly got the job and told me, "Man, I nearly did this Alien film with Fede Alvarez," and I'm a fan of Fede's work. And I was like, "What, man? Who ended up getting the job?" turned out I'd work with him. So I emailed him, and it was a tough sweat, man. He took like 6 weeks to get back to me, and when he did, he said, "Oh man, it'd be great to have you, but we're full up." And I said, "Oh, that's a shame, man, because in Australia we're not as expensive as your boys over there in the States, so And then he goes, "Fede wants to meet with you in 15 minutes." I go, "All right, man, let's go, let's do it." And so that was it. Then that was it. I was on, and then I was like asking him. I was like, "Oh, look, like, what do you need?" And I don't know if you know what I've contributed already, but then he had the book that they released, that we released after Covenant. So he knew who I was, and I was in, man. It was great.
Yeah. Well, tell me that initial conversation with Fede then.
He pretty much went straight into like breaking down where Romulus was going to take off from. So he was in his office with Naaman together, and just went straight into, "Look, man, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to tell a story. It's a little bit like it's like the young guys on Hadley's Hope, He goes, "Don't hate it because there's teenagers, okay? Just trust me. It's going to be okay." I was like, okay, man. All right. Convince me. But that sort of that premise, like someone growing up on a whaling colony, that's a cool premise, man. And the start is it's such a strong way to start, like an alien story. I love that part in particular. And anyway, and then he went straight into the Cocoon and the asteroid. The asteroid was first, and then the Cocoon, and then he's like talking about what he wants to introduce into the lore. And then originally, in the end, essentially what he had originally envisioned, and we took, because the conversation went on for the whole job, like it just kept on coming back. And originally, all rivers were going to flow to the xenomorph. The whole thing about the perfect organism being that black shit would always lead to that creature, and that's what the originally the thing that Offspring at the end was. I'll release them eventually, but drawings where it turns into a xenomorph as well.
I'm aware that was in one of the earlier cuts of the film. There was a bit of that initially sort of thrown out there, but changed it.
Yeah, he sent me the VFX, because there were like VFX placeholders for how that was going to go down in the end. And at one point, the creature had wings, which was he admitted is like really hard to sell that, And but in his own words, he's like, "Man, if anyone can do it, like you could make it look cool." And I was like, "Well, I'll try," and I did. I got somewhere that I thought was pretty good, but in the end, what was in the cut, which I saw when I was at the premiere, when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, thank God, man, this is just right. This is perfect." So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So what you've told us a little bit about that initial conversation. What kind of details can you tell us about what Fede specifically wanted to introduce to the lore? From that conversation that may not have ended up in the film, or what did that conversation sort of go like?
Well, I think part of the reason why Disney got in on Fede's whole thing, right, was he had a clear vision from the outset. So there wasn't much that sort of ended up on the floor. Like, for example, the Cocoon. A lot of people have asked me now, "Oh, is this something that's specific to that genetic code of the xenomorph, or is that a life cycle thing that they have?" And Fede had originally said, "Look, man, you don't know what the xenomorph was doing on the Nostromo for those couple of hours, And the idea being that potentially that's what it was doing. It was rapidly growing in that Cocoon thing. So that's like a good example of him like knowing from the outset what was going to happen." And man, the feeling I had, because my first question to him, I said, "I got to ask you straight away." I said, "R-rated or what? This is a Disney playground. We might get in trouble here." And he goes, "I never directed something that's not R-rated. I'm not going to start now." I'm like, "All right, man." And then I said, "And cinema or streaming? Like, what's happening?" And he goes, "I'm aiming for cinema," but that wasn't confirmed until later on in the project. But that's what he wanted to do. He's a cinema guy. The guy's he's a real deal filmmaker. So, I'm so happy for him. I'm so happy for Romulus that it's done what it's done. Man, there wasn't much on the cutting room floor. I mean, the first draft I read is pretty close to what made it into the cut from memory. At
Yeah.
the time, man, I was working on 2 other movies at the same time when I started. I was a bit, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, interesting. Um, was there anything in in that sort of script that I guess because we'll talk about the designs, obviously.
hmm
But was there anything in the script which, or at least in the conversations that you had as the filming progressed and as the project kept growing, that sort of influenced your designs from more like a biological level? Was there anything that was sort of hinted at, and from the lore aspect, was there anything about that which sort of
Uh,
grew your design process?
well, I definitely brought stuff to it. Like my original idea for this xenomorph, I had 2 ideas that I thought were going to be, I thought they were going to rock, right? Was going to be no, either it was going to be a combination of the first 3 xenomorphs that we saw, the dog alien, the warrior, and the big chap. And I thought, if you incorporated everything into that, you could argue like this is like this pure strain of the creature, like but it sort of didn't really hit. And then the other one was that I would love to go like really biomechanoid and more mech than bio, where if it's a product of engineering, then maybe you'd see almost machine-like information in some of the parts. Definitely heaps of metal. Part of the big thing that we hit very fast was Fady wanted to see what it looked like if the muscle, the muscles that hold the jaw together. He goes like, when Spike jammed that thing into the cocoon and electrocuted it, maybe it like melted off half its face. So I tried
Mm.
heaps which kind of looked cool because you had like a lot more teeth coming out.
Mm.
But that kind of in the end, man, what happened was, and I got to say this, and I'm glad I could say it public as well. What happens is I did heaps and heaps of drawings, but Legacy Effects ended up taking bits and pieces of that and their own stuff, and then they went ahead because they made it. They had the final sort of say in the presentation of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so probably the main thing that they kept that was in my drawing was the crown sort of look, and that was because Fede wanted to see, and I don't know if you really see it in the movie now, but he wanted to see that the head could move independently of the dome, like there was flex in the dome, and that was one
Oh,
of the
okay.
earliest things he wanted to talk about, and so yeah, and that's where that crowny sort of bit comes from. It's like an inference that it
Mm.
may be able to do that, but I don't remember if the animatronic did it or if it does that in the movie, but that was one thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know whether I didn't spot that, but it may be one of those things that they did include, but it's you kind of have to know to look out for it, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
After this conversation,
yeah,
yeah.
no, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, all right, okay, and the, well, tell me about the design. So, what did you design? Tell me about all the design
Um,
process and
it was so cool, man. Because at first, Fade's testing us all out to see what we can do, and I started off with the cocoon, of course, and the offspring was obviously the most nerve-wracking thing. Like is this going
mm,
to end up like resurrection again? And where everyone's kind of not into it. And yeah, he was like saying, man, that's the thing that keeps me up at night. And I said, well, let's start there. Like let's get that conversation rolling. So I did heaps of that. And look, I love painting translucent things. Like I get,
mm,
I just like that stuff. So I'll try to inject it into everything I do. And what happened was I'd done that cocoon, and he liked it and approved it, and then it was off getting made. And then they kind of went quiet, him and Naaman kind of went quiet. And I was a bit worried. I was like, oh, maybe they're not happy with what I'm doing. And then I was like, well, they're still paying me, so I'm going to do the next thing. So I jumped onto the eggs were originally 3D printed. Um, so the facehugger eggs, you know how they're in that cool case that a friend of mine, Chris Rosewarne, drew that.
yep,
But they were originally in like this like amber colored egg. I'll share the drawings eventually. These amber colored like 3D printed eggs, kind of like a synthetic womb for the creature. So I did that, and I just kept on jumping onto stuff. And what would happen is that would provoke Fade to give me notes. Like he would go, "Oh no, change that. Oh, this idea's already changed." Or, "Oh man, this is a cool idea. Let's move on to that." And so the face huggers, man, that was like I got to do my pass on that. I'd also like to just add the disclaimer again in case anyone thinks like a fucking alien douchebag. But all that stuff's been designed, of course. You know what I mean? Like the facehugger was its perfect version in the first film, in my opinion. So was the big jab. All that shit was already done, and I'm just playing in the shadow and making little contributions to it. So, you know, the facehugger was very precious. Again, no one's going to care. Maybe we'll care, but I was very precious about all the real estate on the actual creature. You know, every knuckle, every little tiny piece for me was important, and I wanted to make sure that the information is going somewhere. You know, and what had happened was I'd done the Chestburster, which again I was super precious. But I tried some mad shit with the Chestburster that I thought was going to go in. I was like, this man, they're going to love this, but Fade was like, nah, that's too out there, man. You can't do that. So yeah, I did one that had the black head, and he goes, "Oh, that is cool, man." He goes, "Let's put some more black into these guys," and that's when the facehugger turned into that. And also, I'm really precious about a couple of the other designs from the other movies, you know, where people have just assumed, oh man, you can see a vagina on the underside of the facehugger. Let's just do a vagina. I'm like, no, it's not, man. It's not. Like, you got to take that and you got to pervert it just a little bit more. You got to play on that, you know. So I made like these like sort of oyster lips around the edge, you know, real kind of. I kept on doing like that. Geiger does like this decay, that skin decay look kind of thing. But Fede was not into that. Like, he was like, no, make it more like clean. So I did that, but sort of the grosser I got, if I got like to a gross place, he would just go, oh, that is it, man. I did one where it's got the proboscis coming out, and I kept it erect because that is way more of an assault, you know. Like I'm just gonna call it like creature design is what I love to do and think about, and a wiggly proboscis is nowhere near as an assault as an erect attacking proboscis, you know, like. And I've said this in many different interviews, you know, but that's what's so great about Alien is that it harasses us on so many primordial levels, from suffocation to penetration to the inner mouth, you know, the secret death that comes after the ugliness, the big phallus, you know, this whole assault. It is an assaulting life cycle design. Every fun, but that's why it's perfect. That is why I love it so deeply, and I'll always be like a fan. Like, I'll just keep on talking about it like it's like I just love it. So yeah, man, and so yeah, so the facehuggers, the Chestbursters, which my friend Alec Gillis went on to make, which was a buzz because I used to watch him on on DVDs. I used to watch him as a fan. Go, one day I'll talk to that guy. Now I talk to him all the time. So it's pretty cool. And the Legacy Effects guys as well. So yeah, the Cocoon, the Asteroid, Alex Nice did a version of that, and then I also did one where, because what happened is, and what does happen is, after you've shot it, and there's a lot of practical stuff in Romulus, absolutely, but after it's been shot, you know, Fede will get an idea and go, man, I really want to try this. Can you show me what this looks like? And if it works, he'll hand it over to VFX, and then they've got to take it and build it. And so the Asteroid was like that. And then the Offspring at the end, again, I did a lot of drawings for that, you know, that I'm sure went into what it became. But Legacy Effects ultimately had the final say. There's lots of stuff in there that I had drawn that is in that thing, but you know, ultimately they were the designers of that. So yeah, but it basically was gross. Then I had a crack at it. You know, the hive, which my friend Monica Alberto did in the end. She made that, and yeah, anyway, man, yeah, I think that's about all the junk that I did. If it was gross, then I had a little go at it.
All right, well let's. No, I mean that's interesting as hell. Let's break it down, I guess, like step by step. So
yeah,
let's talk about the meteorite, the comet, the resin cocoon type thing.
Yeah.
What was the notes you were given about that, and what was it that what was the design that you sort of put together and the choices you made? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, man. So I started off just with it was an asteroid, right? And in my mind, because it was a mineral refinery, there was minerals, you know, and you could imagine that there's be a mineral buildup on the creature as it's floating around, you know, hypothetically. And so I tried some really minerally ones. Again, I'll share the drawings when the time comes, but like I did heaps of like classic meteorite kind of styled things. And at some point, Fadia was like, "Oh, that's cool. Well, we'll just go with that." And it was nothing really specific. I was like, "Oh, that's fine. That's good." And then
Hmm.
a couple of weeks later, like we're doing other stuff, and he calls me. Oh, and he emails me and gets back to me and goes, "Listen, I've had an idea, man. I want to see what it would look like if the alien kind of did a little bit like what it does in the hive and create that hive information, you know, the ribs and the spines and all that shit."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, man, let me have a crack at it." And I was drawing it. I couldn't quite get it right. I did a couple versions of it, and then I got the shits, and I just went in my garage and sculpted one up. And then what I did was actually I got this NECA guy, this exact one right here. I boiled it in a pot, much to my wife's chagrin, right? I boiled it in a pot till it was like jelly. I got it, and then I just bound it with elastic bands and glad wrap, and shrunk it down to it's tiny as it's still very fucked, you can see. And I shrunk it like right down and sculpted over the top of it, because then the dimensions were perfect, you know. And I could play with the shape of that, and you know, infer that the creature was in there or that he made it, but also you don't quite know, was that a part of some kind of a hive from somewhere else, or like what was that? So yes, I did that, and then I cut up an old phone cord and wrapped it around it for for detail, and then and that was it. It was in, and yeah, he loved it. So I photographed it and then painted it. Don't get me wrong, man, it's rough as guts when I sculpt it, but then I in Photoshop I paint it up and make it look nice, and that was it.
Yeah.
That's how that got in. I was relieved because you know, like it was. It's really stressful when you, for me personally, like on Alien Covenant and on Alien, and there's a couple other franchises I've managed to play with that I'm very excited about. But like I remember just feeling sick to my stomach, like because obviously you guys are going to be hard on the designs, the world's going to be hard on the designs, but I'm a fan, man. I'm the same. I got the same opinions, you know. Like when those other films, when I watch them, I've got the exact same reaction. So like now the axe hangs above my head. You know, like if I think I'm going to see something shitty, I'm going to be like, "Oh, that was me. Oh my god, that's." You know. So yeah, man, I was sick to my stomach just trying to get it right. I remember when I agreed to the job, I was on 2 other jobs at the same time, and my hand was shaking because I was like, "Oh fuck, how can I manage the time? Number one, and number two, how can I bring my best when I'm distracted?" I was on like some Disney project and something else. And yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah,
So
I guess that's kind of interesting that I had my little prop there, I guess.
yeah, no, that I think people would find that interesting, to be honest. So was the direction from Fedi that the xenomorph had encased itself, or was that by accident?
Ultimately, yeah. So originally it was that mineral thing, like, and that was the conversation, like, "Oh, it's like this mineral buildup." So that's the route that I went. Those were the drawings. They're very organic, very mineral, you know. But then by the time I had done that one, he goes, "No, I want to know what it would look like if it had the ability to do the secretive resin," you know. And I was imagining that that's exactly what it's doing to, you know, encase itself in something protective.
No, I mean, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? To the perfect organism should be able to survive the vacuum of space, and if it can't, it can sort of generate something which allows it to for a prolonged period of time. So
yeah, I feel like that was the outlook. Yeah, that's yep.
Yeah. What did you? So going from the asteroid, looking at the pictures of and the sort of designs of the cocoon. That was pretty much all you, wasn't it? What ended up on screen by the looks of it, from what I can see, from the
man.
little clay model that you sort of put together. I mean, it's literally all on the screen, isn't it? In the end.
Yeah. Obviously, you know, Legacy again. They took that design and they actually made it, and so someone has to take those drawings and then re-sculpt them. You know, like if I was more of a 3D guy, I guess I would probably do that myself. But I work a little faster, so I can generate many more iterations for a director. I think that's why they like it. I can do many more iterations and many ideas, and then they can lock into one or take parts of all of them and give them to someone else. So the Legacy guys had to model that in 3D and then physically make it. So, I mean, you know, you saw in the drawings that I put out there, like I try to go over everything that's required to to make it. Part of that is ego, because like you want to have that level of influence over something, but the other part of it is personally, again, I like to take the guesswork out of the drawings. I mean, if you're a good artist, you could be really gestural and you could do 50 different versions, and someone could take that and do their interpretation of it. But I can be a little more anal about what I do, and I get a little hung up on the details sometimes. And luckily for me, if I can do it fast enough, no one complains, you know. So that's how. Yeah. But yeah, it was essentially what I drew. They made it, and it looked sick. I was right there when they were shooting that, when Trevor had to come out of it. It was awesome, man.
So tell me about the design of the Cocoon, because we saw from the designs that you've released, the sort of concept of it. Saw some of the egg morphing in there, which I really appreciated. I really liked that. It's something which it's very like, some people love it, some people hate it. Sure. I really like the idea of egg morphing.
Yeah.
So what was the design? What was the notes that you got as well from Fede? What was the direction that you got, and what was it that you ultimately wanted to bring and did bring?
Yeah. Well, it was like a nerve-wracking kind of time, because I mean, also you've just met these people that you're now working with, you know, and also again, I happen to really be a fan of Fede's stuff, so I was like triple nervous, you know. And that was me kind of lashing out. I was like, all right, man, I'm gonna try the shit that I want to try, and you know, you feel free to shoot it down or change it or push against it, you know. And you don't know. Sometimes that can scare a director off. Sometimes they go, oh, this guy's he doesn't get it, you know. When really, of course, as a commercial artist, you are actually employed to get it. You have to. If you're good, then you can figure out what they want and what they need. And in that case, I was just lashing out. I was like, what would I do if I was making this movie? How would I do this? You know, and I wanted as many kind of textural callbacks to the almost like behind the scenes shit, you know, like you can see those, obviously those are deleted scenes. The egg morphing stuff is a deleted scene, but then there's also the other sculptures that I tried to sneak in there. And even I tried to infer like almost like the jockey's costume, as it is now after Prometheus, that armor that they wear, maybe that's also grown, you know, like that could be a part of it. And that's where you can, in one of those drawings that I shared, you can kind of see that face, and just like, maybe, because if that black shit is as zany as Prometheus made it out to be, I mean, what else are they using it for? You know, obviously it makes monsters, but you know, like, the company's interested in it maybe because you can turn it into armor, or you can use it to turn yourself into like a Guyver suit, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's where all that stuff came from, man. I was just like lashing out, like just like getting all of that shit out of my system. And thankfully, Fede didn't get scared, and he came back and says, no, man, it's more like this, you know? I'm like, okay, all right. So I didn't know it was going to be upside down. I didn't know that, like, I didn't see any storyboards at the time, so I was just making it all up. But then every time I could smell like, oh, maybe he's thinking about this, or maybe they're thinking about that, then I would just lean into it. Like, so yeah.
Okay, so I mean, look, the Cocoon itself, I think it's a fantastic design. I think it's genuinely really, really, really great, and it's very Giga. Very, very Giga, but without being an homage almost. I think it's something which he would have looked at, you know, and probably gone, yeah, no, I approve of that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, it's very vaginal, right?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
kind
of course.
Get that out of the way, and it should be.
Because
I think the Alien franchise has really lost the
psychosexual
sort of, the sort of sexual horror aspect.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is integral to the horror that, you know, the xenomorph exhibits on the audience. So I really, really appreciated that with the Cocoon design. So, you know, obviously we've jumped ahead a little bit because I know you did some work on the Chestburster, but the Cocoon itself. So what was your thinking? What is it like? How does it make it? Because it's this tiny little Chestburster. What was your thought process overall?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, Fede had an opinion about like sort of everything. So when I when he sees like the broad strokes of those egg morphing ones, right? So what that does is that provides an opportunity for him to push against something, and it's the same for every director. I mean, that's why in this field you can't afford to be necessarily attached to everything you do. Like, I mean, I try to, because I want to put myself into it, but when those ideas just get cut down, you just hack it. You just go, oh, okay, it's not quite it, but it helps to guide them. So it's almost like when they know what they don't want, it will encourage them to find what they do want. A good director, and and so Fede would kind of like go, no, man, think of the tunnel like this, and the guy finds it there. I go, okay, all right, and then I would ask questions. I'm like, is it in it set? Like, did the creature set itself in a groove? Like, because corridors can have like grooves, and like that's like a cockroach would do that. Cockroach is very rarely just going to do it like in the middle. It's going to go like in the corner or in the groove of something, and I can't remember if he got back to me specifically about that kind of stuff, but I started to incorporate it, and that's where I began to infer. And you can see in those drawings, where I was inferring that there's more information behind the wall than you actually see, and in terms of it being like a little Bambi burster creating its little cocoon, I don't know how it got up there. I imagine it's like the alien in Alien 3 is on top of the roof and all that sort of shit, or the big chap at the end when it's in the the little ship, the name escapes me, but where it's laying down and its mouth comes out, where it's like a snake that has just shed its skin and it's just like stretching, and so I imagine that maybe the Bambi's doing the exact same thing up there in the grooves of all of the cables and shit of that corridor, and then that's where it sort of sets itself up. And then again, I've never drawn this, but I would like to do it where I would love to think that they're pulling the resin from itself to create whatever it's going to make. I think that would look sick, or I used to have this toad that when it wanted to hibernate, it would develop this thick mucus membrane around itself, and then it will pull it over itself like this to create its cocoon. I think that would look sick. I've done like a couple of little drawings out there in the world where I sort of lean on that a little bit, but I don't know, maybe the next one, maybe I'll get to show that.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. So, okay, cool. Tell me about the Chestburster then, because you said you had some really cool designs for that, and you also said some of the elements, at least the coloring element, was crossed over into the facehugger. So tell me about the Chestburster, and then we'll move on to the facehugger again.
Well, I really like the Chestburster in the first place. Like for me, that's one of the most successful kind of versions of the life cycle of the creature. Like I love the original one, and it just looks so angry, and so it's such a pupa. It's a fantastic design. So anyway, I was super nervous drawing it again. I was like, oh man, if I make this look cockeyed, again, the way it's appeared in other places is like, I'm not a fan. Some of the other ones, but so I was really careful about it, and thankfully, man, like I tried one where it was all black. I tried one where it was all bone color, and Fede goes, well, try one where it's like you can see it change color, which is exactly what they did in the end. And I saw the camera test when they did it, and I was like, oh my God, this is the sickest contribution. And Alec Gillis and Studio Gillis just made the sickest puppet, man, where it does that, he basically you see it flush through that dome, and I thought, man, what a sick way to, obviously these creatures grow super fast, right? Like and so we know that from Alien, of course there's lots of patience in between what happens, but in terms of the how long, it's a very fast experience. But now we're in Prometheus territory, where we can see that shit rapidly accelerate anything, invent mass, like it can do so much. So with the Chestburster coming out and flashing the black, it looks like a blue-ringed octopus flashing dangerous, but it's also telling us it's going to be a really fast experience from here. Like And I remember when I was there on set and Fede showed me the footage of that. And one of the big things I wanted to bring, I was like, man, instead of it just coming out, like I would love to see it in a sack. Like it's got a membrane it's got to push out of once it gets out, and it's in there, like the creature does it. And then Fede was like, that's all you, bro. I was like, thanks, man. I'm not used to a director like admitting that or like being interested in that idea made it through, and I was like, yeah, sick, man. I was stoked. So that's how that happened, and that informed the facehuggers. Absolutely. I think when I did the black one, he saw that. I was like, oh, that's interesting, like let's play with that. And so that's where the Chestburster has the black element appearing in it, flushing through it, and then obviously the facehuggers were like a darker color and they just looked more like kind of muddy, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of like less sterile and more spidery, I guess.
So okay, well, yeah, I mean that's super interesting. It does sound like Fede. I mean, the fact that he remembered that was your contribution as well, and sort of congratulated you on that, I guess, and appreciated that. That must have been such a good experience.
Oh man,
especially as a fan of the franchise.
It was man. I wasn't sure, like, because when I got to Hungary, I wasn't sure. I was like, oh, how will I be sort of received? Like, because are they going to be like, oh, yeah, you're that guy? Hey, it was not like that. It was like a big hug, man. It was like, oh, man, come here, and that was it, man. I was there. I think I was there for 7 days. I just stayed in the tent. I stayed in Fede's tent. I was there with his mum for 1 day.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, just like talking and watching that big space vagina with his mum. So that was cool, man. That was very, very good.
So with the facehuggers, then what was the designs you did for the facehuggers?
I did some wild stuff, right? So I'm probably talking it up now because like when you see the artwork, you go, "Is that it? Fuck, that's pretty tame." But I tried one where it had really wispy fingers first, because I just thought, wow, imagine if it was like almost like octopus, like to sort of double down on the suffocation factor. And it looked disgusting, you know what I mean? It looks like I try to get a visceral reaction from someone looking at it, like it's yuck. So I tried that. I tried a couple of bonier ones. I tried a couple. My favorite one was a white one. I just thought, like, if it was like engineered and this is the fundamental version of this engineering thing, it might look like it's a designer creature, so I tried one of those, and I tried one on Covenant. I'd done this drawing, and my friend Dominic Haleston did a version of this deformed fetus where he put these black bones in it. So it's a clear skin with the black bones in the middle. And so I did one facehugger like that. Which again, look, maybe now that I say it, you think, oh man, I don't know if that's going to work out or not. But if you see the drawing, like, I thought I pretty effectively captured some interesting shit, and also, in the shadow of these awesome designs that already existed, I'm like, how do I bring something without, and even in Fede's Woods, like my original Xeno thing, like the whole mouth came out, I tried to do some really funny shit. And Fede even said, he goes, man, you want the truth? The truth is, I like your one. I want to do that one. If I do that, the fans are going to crucify us. And I'm like, yeah, okay. All right. You got it. So, the facehuggers were like that. I tried this big fat tarantula kind of one. Again, it's probably better if you see it before, like, I talk about it, because when you see it, you'll probably be so underwhelmed. But who knows?
No, I think it's interesting. So I guess you were making. It's interesting that you going back to Covenant as well, because some of the stuff that you're saying for Romulus with the sort of thin sort of wispy fingers and stuff.
Yeah,
you could definitely see some of that in David's drawings as well, I think.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that was in the lab. So it's interesting that design language is sort of coming across as well.
Yeah.
So, whose idea was it to do the barbed fingers then?
That's Fede.
Or the toes?
No, that was Fede. Yeah. No, he said, he goes, man, I want to try something really nasty. Like, what if there was these tiny little hypodermic needles in the tips of the fingers? I go, yeah, you got that, man. That's a sick idea. I'm going to do it. So I did it. I mean, obviously when they when they made them, they're a lot more kind of what's the word, exaggerated, because you can't really see that. You know what I mean? It's got to be
Mm.
theatrical. So tiny little hypodermic, like glassy, like needles. Who knows? You know, you may see, you may not. But the way that Weta eventually did that, like they had to kind of exaggerate that stuff so you can see it. Also, it's easier to make when you do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, and I mean, are we it, like in universe, in in the alien world, as if
Hmm.
we're there?
Yep.
Because I mean, that's that's my jam. Like, I like a bit of escapism.
Oh
I'm a
yeah,
big
yeah.
fan. So I love this kind of stuff. In my head canon,
Hmm.
it's that the reason that there's such a variation is that these creatures were pulled directly from the the Prometheus strain, as they called it
Yeah.
in the movie,
Yeah.
and that's why there's subtle variations, because either they didn't quite get it right,
Yeah.
or that's the sort of purest form of it. Is that,
Yes.
was that the kind of direction that you were given, or what was that?
Yeah. I think like an extrapolation, like it's exactly sort of as you've kind of figured it out. The way that Fede kind of had it was like, you're playing with that DNA stuff. That black stuff gives you some wiggle room, but it was extracted from the original, it was extracted from the big chap. So it's like there's, I mean, like obviously there's going to be lots of familiarity, but there was room to play. And obviously that was when, like the Offspring is his version of like lashing out at that. Like he's free of like being beholden to a lot of other designs, and he really wanted to do something. He said from the outset, he goes, everything's got to be like horror, man. He goes, think of this as a horror movie. Like don't try to, like full credit to Prometheus and Covenant, regardless of if you liked them or not, which I have mixed feelings about them, absolutely. But full credit to them. They were more interested in being high-minded sort of concept, science fiction stories, not necessarily resolved, but that was their intention. This was a horror movie. He wanted to make it. So a lot of that stuff, I mean, the information is there. Fede said from the outset, he goes, man, the thing about the black shit, everyone thinks that Weyland Yutani wants it to make it into a weapon, but it's kind of stupid. Think of them wanting them for good reasons. It's even scarier, which is they want that black shit to cure diseases. And the movie, sort of like brushes over that, cure diseases and do all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's a sick take on it, actually. Like it's pretty cool. And so that's where you do get that science-y kind of part of it. That's where you get the 3D printed eggs as they originally were. And so that information's still in those designs, I suppose, but it is very kind of I don't know, it's very extrapolated. You know what I mean? It's a couple of times removed from what we've already seen. So yeah.
I actually really like that about the film, because when I did my review, and we'll get back to talking about the designs, of course, but
yeah.
I think a nice little segue talking about the movie itself as well. Like I think that was one of the great things about the movie, is that there's a lot in there that for people that are looking, not necessarily looking for it, but for people that are being quite observant whilst watching the film, there's a lot there for you to feast your eyes on. I mean, you talk about 3D printed. I mean, there is a scene which literally shows these sort of 3D printers with all the facehuggers lying around, and I was like, that's, how smart is that?
Yeah, and there's like a half printed one, yeah. Like the camera goes past and you see like a half printed one, and
it's just like it's sort of a blink and you'll miss it moment. But I loved that. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I love that whole set, actually. That little lab set, which I'm pretty sure my friend Nick Staff drew that. It's and being there was sick, man, because that felt like an alien movie. Covenant, like walking around the sets for Covenant, they were more Prometheus-y, you know what I mean? They were more like contemporary spaceship. Whereas this was like, man, I'm walking around in like an alien movie set, and heaps of that alien isolation stuff was in it as well. Those little phone booths.
That was so good.
Yeah, so that was We all agreed from straight away. It was like the first meeting where we were all together, like it was like a town meeting, right? Goddamn town meeting. We're all together, and there was straight away, like I can't remember who brought it up, but I was like, man, like I don't know how anyone feels about those games, that game, but I feel like it nailed the aesthetic of that retro science fiction look that we keep on talking about. Because Fede was talking about Atari games and old technology, and that's when Isolation got brought up, and we all just like unanimously agreed, like, can we put this in there? And I don't know who hustled it, but we got the assets from that game, so. That's where those.
The actual assets.
Yeah, we actually got them. Yeah, I still have them. Yeah, so a couple of those, like those phone booth things, are just like cut and paste and put straight in. So yeah, I just thought of something else, man, that is in the movie, like really briefly, but kind of touches on the last thing we're talking about, which is, there's like a press that comes down and squashes a rat. And then later on, you see that same fish tank, like it's like smashed out with all this shit. I did that as well, and that was so fun to do, man, because it started off being like really gross and rat-like. Like I put like this, like it has this rat information in there, but then Freddy kept going, no, crazier, and then in the end, it's got like this weird, it's got like white shit from the engineer kind of appearance. It's got like xenomorph stuff. It's got, and that's kind of like at the very height of its science fiction-iness, where it's like that's after that black shit was in that rat. And it has like this, it looks like The Thing, which for me, I just loved, man. I just love being able to draw that because it was just like, it's like a, like
absolutely balls to the wall.
Yeah. And it's just like a sister The Thing experience for me, like I would love to do
that. Yeah. But, The Thing's one of my favorite films. I love that. Absolutely amazing. Okay, cool. So, final creature, I guess, is the Offspring, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So like I did like lots and lots of drawings, and I was nervous too, man. I was like, how are we going to do this?
Well, I'm going to interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
And I've been careful not to interrupt at all.
Yeah.
What did you think of the final design first in the film? What's your honest thoughts of it?
Honestly, I loved it, man. I did, honestly, especially its first appearance. Also, Fede's instincts, like on how to present information. First of all, we all know him. He's been talking about how he want to do everything practical, right? That by default, that puts you in a place where you now have to use the same kind of camera angles, the same kind of filmmaking ingenuity that went into movies that we really like from our youth. But also, I'm not just being an old man shaking fist at the clouds, right? I happen to just like limitations, man. If you need to tell a story within the limitations and you've got a camera that you have to put somewhere, you need to think about how you're going to do that, and I never saw the storyboards. I'm sure there was storyboards, but the way that all that stuff is presented, the way that it goes down, the performance as well is perfect, and I loved it. So yeah, my honest answer is I love that creature, and I hope they make a toy of it. Like I want to get it. And
yeah, that's true. That would be good with the toy, to be honest.
Yeah, and after they shot it, that's when I got heaps of plates back from the footage. This is after I came back from Hungary, and Freddie goes, "Man, I want to change some shit. Can you help me out?" And that's where I added the tail, where you see like the tail go. I mean, look, I didn't animate it, but I drew it where you can see like what it will look like, and then heaps of those things like where it stands up and you see the long tail sweep down. So I was like sort of drew that, and then obviously the VFX guys have to take that and then make it in 3D and then turn it into what it was, which I thought was flawless, by the way. But also one of the first things he said, man, he goes, "Man, I really want to get this basketball, And I go, "Yeah, okay, show me him." And I looked at him and I was like, "Are you serious?" Like, so that was the first point of reference. That was what this guy was going to look like. And I was like, it was hard, man, because look, I'm not a traditional artist in the sense that I went to art school, right? I'm self-taught. So, but there are a couple of things I do know about scale and in the presentation of anatomy. That guy has abnormal anatomy, like the length of his neck. If I drew that and gave it to someone and said, "Oh, here's what I'm thinking about what this character would look like," they'll go, "It's all right, but no one could ever go into that suit because the anatomy is so fucked. You'll never pull that off." But nah, man, his anatomy is so interesting and impressive, and he was awesome in it, man. And that footage that you see that's been floating around, it's from Fade's phone, where
Yeah.
he's standing there and he's like swinging his arm, like talking, and there's a guy looking up at him, and he's like got to look all the way up. And I'm like, when Fede showed that to me, I was just like, "Are you serious, bro? Like, this is incredible." I think he sent it to me when I was doing the VFX plates, because this is what the guy looks like. This is what you're gonna have to match. And I was like, "Whoa, man!" Everyone's gonna think that's a digital effect. That's how extreme it looks, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, but no, I was stoked, man, because obviously I did so much work on it in the first place to try to get it to a place that he was happy with, and nothing quite hit where he goes, "That's it, make it like that." The Chestburster was like that. He goes, "Don't deviate, don't change, make it exactly as he drew it." The Offspring was open to interpretation, and that's where Legacy took that and they did their own version of it, and they made it what it was. But then I got the plates back, where after they'd shot it, where he wanted to try all this different shit, and at that point, that's where it was going to have the wings. So the pipes in the back of the thing, they were going to just turn into like, and the way I had drawn them, and again, thank God it's not in there, because then I'm not going to be judged because of what I drew. But I'll share it at some point. But I made them very organic, very very skin like, very almost like a tumor kind of growing out of the back of the creature that look like wings, you know. Anyway, again, I mean, look, when I say it, it sounds cool. Maybe when you see, okay, this guy, man. We'll wait and see how the audience reacts to that. But
So
yeah, man.
what was the direction then from Fede? Because obviously you can see, this little ball is birthed out, isn't it? This little miniature ovomorph type deal.
Yes. Yeah.
Then there's quite a humanoid-looking baby fetus thing.
Yep.
And then it just rapidly expands into this engineer cross.
Yep.
Xeno cross human thing.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
What was Fede's request and sort of thought process? I mean, obviously you're not privy to it all, but what was it that and also because again, I know from early cuts that it was going to progress more xenomorph-esque.
Yeah.
So what happened with all of that, and what's that sort of what was the process there?
Well, so originally, in the story, it was the creature, right? It was just that creature. Pretty much, I guess how it is. Pretty much how it is in the movie is how it was in the original draft, actually. But it's as he was going along where he started to think of more things. Where he's like, "Oh man, maybe I could push it in this direction. I might be able to get away with it. And so we always knew that the Offspring was going to be this human engineer Xeno hybrid. So we already knew that. But when I did drawings of the xenomorph ripping out of that Offspring, like it was underneath the skin the whole time. Or it was like sheds its skin to become the xenomorph. I did versions of that, which he loved, and I think maybe if they had some more money and time, maybe they would have done that. But I much prefer what it is now. And then the other one was this big white, and it was huge, by the way. It got like big, like a queen almost, and it was a whitish thing with the pipes on the back. Of the way I drew it was the pipes grew into tentacles that had hooks on it that's holding onto the bottom of the ship, and it had an engineer, like a deformed engineer face, but with the dome was growing at the back, the head, and essentially had wings. It had like these big soft kind of pink wings. I drew them pink. Maybe they wouldn't have ended up like that if they went that route, but so that was that. But that was just Fede really thinking on the fly as he was going along. Like adding, seeing how far he could get away with, like what else he could contribute. And again, in the end, I didn't know until I saw when I was at the premiere in Los Angeles, where when I saw it, I was like, oh wow, they didn't turn it into the xenomorph, and that's fantastic. I didn't talk to him about it afterwards. we talked about other stuff, but I should have asked him about like, oh man, what was the thinking? You know, was it financial or did you think better of the idea?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Okay. Wow. So what? Out of the things which I've said, what else did you work on that maybe I've not mentioned, or what else is it that you contributed to the film?
Probably just the hive, which feels like a natural progression of what I was already caring about on that film. But in the end, it looked quite different to the drawings. But the drawings were, I basically took Nick Stath's model, or at least I think I did. I took the model, and then what I tried to bring to it was that the hive material wasn't quite set yet. So like if it's like a resin, right? In the stage that it was in, it wasn't quite hardened all the way. So there was heaps of bits where you could see the lights from the corridor still flashing, like surging behind the like the mass of material. So it was like a kind of like a honey kind of look to it, you know. And I can't remember, like I don't know if it sort of translated like that, you know, in the end. But yeah, there was that, and I was so keen to do like that, you know, please kill me, that like that version for this movie. So I did that drawing, but in the end, it looked a little bit different when they shot it. But yeah, that's probably the other main thing. You know, I did the crew shirts just because I was excited to do that. That was another thing I drew for him. And yeah, I look, there's other bits and pieces for sure, but I don't remember. But man, I've got my folder here, and thankfully no one's told us to stop sharing art, so we're just going to keep on sharing them. So
yeah, I was going to say that, because I mean, normally art is not shared this quickly, like from what I can tell. I mean, even on, yeah, it's just not.
Well, man, the trailers kind of wrecked a lot of shit, man. Like they went nuts, man. Like, and from memory, I was talking to another Alien fan, and they were saying, oh, you know, the movie's not tracking very well. Not many people know that it's coming out, and they're scared. And then by the time, like before it came out, they just ramped up advertising, man, and they just put like, and the day before there was a behind the scenes where you see,
I know,
oh man, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh wow. I stopped watching.
I was really disappointed that they did that. I mean, obviously it's not, you know, it's no one's fault. That's the marketing department, it's you know, it's the studio itself. But I thought that I was really disappointed with that, because obviously for me, for doing what I do here, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, I feel like I have to watch a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
Self-imposed, but also imposed by the audience. And, you know, I did know a lot of what was happening in this movie before it was released, but I don't want to see it. You know, it's actually the execution that I love the most. It's seeing it on the screen. It's seeing it directed. It's seeing it lit perfectly. All of that, you know, that's the surprise to me. I can know everything that's going to happen in a movie, but it's how it's executed that, you know, that's what I enjoy the most, you know, all put together. So I was really disappointed that they started to do that.
Yeah. It's even when I'm working on movies that I'm excited about, like, this is going to sound funny, but I try not to read the script properly, right? Like I try to skim read it so that I could just see, like, oh, is this a good story? And of course, like the designers, they're going to call me in and they're going to go, oh, you know, the part where this happens. And I go, sure. I don't remember, but I go, yeah.
Yep.
And then they'll just tell me, like, well, they go, well, you know how this has to happen? I do now. Yeah. Keep giving me more. You know, like, because I don't want to, like, I still love watching movies. I love it. And I just want to go in virgin and just, hopefully, like, you come across a treasure and you just get really pleasantly surprised. And I you know, again, with Romulus, I'm just so grateful that it landed where it was, where it is, you know, and that it's, I mean, you know, it's funny, we're talking about marketing being problematic, like just revealing all that shit, but who knows what led to it being so financially successful as well. But like, maybe that's a part of it, you know, like there's kids that are coming up that have no idea what this stuff is, you know, like they're like, maybe we should check this out. And then in the trailer, you see the proboscis try to go in the guy's mouth, and there's heaps of people that are thinking like, oh, maybe I'll check out this movie, you know, like I've never heard of this before. So maybe, I don't know, man. I'm too old to, I'm not that old, but I'm too old to sort of pretend that I'm not emotionally connected to how a movie's released and
Yeah.
how I experience that movie, which is 9 times out of 10, I want to see it at the cinema,
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a fantastic reception the film has received. I mean, I think probably by now it would have crossed $300 million worldwide,
Pretty awesome.
which that's brilliant.
I'm so happy, man. I'm so happy
That's great.
for them. I'm happy for the franchise too, man. Like I hope that it leads to more stuff, whether or not I get to be a part of it. But yeah.
I mean, I'd be really surprised if it doesn't, because 20th Century Studios, for instance, they released Prey on Hulu. It was just a direct to Hulu, and that's greenlit 2 sequels. Without obviously Hulu, there is a form of accounting that goes there, between the two, studio and distributor.
Yeah.
But for that to be able to greenlight 2 sequels, I can't imagine the success of Alien Romulus at $300 million worldwide wouldn't lead to sequel conversations. It beggars belief that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, man, and hopefully, hopefully I get another Guernsey. I'll definitely have my ear to the ground. As far as those 2 Predator sequels up, I mean, I wonder if they had any talented artists on that as well. That I may or may not know about.
So okay, I guess so. There's been a lot of discussion about this, and I know you've already basically said that you've not, you try to avoid reading the script. But if you were around and you've seen bits and pieces as the film developed, there's been some conversation about notes from Ridley Scott and things which were cut away. Mm-hmm. Do you know of roughly anything that was cut? Anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny seeing that reaction, because I've seen that quite a bit, where people are like, man, if only Ridley didn't touch this, or stuff like that. Let me make it clear, in my experience, right? Fede has just nothing but reverence for Ridley and for what he had done, and that includes what he was trying to do with Prometheus and Covenant, and he sincerely means that. Like that's a real thing, and those are real conversations I had with him. He wanted to marry all the stuff in, man. Like he wanted to ensure that there was enough of a love letter going through this story to Ridley for what he did, So I've seen a lot of comments where they're like, man, if only, Ridley didn't have this opinion or whatever. But nah, man, when Ridley saw that cut, like I'd emailed Fede the next day because I had work to show him. And he goes, man, just letting you know, I showed Ridley our cut yesterday, and he loved it. So as far as I can tell, right? As far as I can tell, the cut that we've seen and that we got is exactly what Fede wanted. And it's not, Ridley's not a molester like that. I don't think. I don't know. It's, if he wanted to be, he would have sort of taken control back, because that's how he works. Like he's Ridley Scott. That's what he could do. In this instance, it wasn't that. It was like, man, he already liked the story. He already spoke to Fede about that story. Had already agreed. Yeah, go for it. Give it a try. And then when he saw it, and he goes, from memory, what Fede said to me, from memory, he goes, frankly, I'm jealous. It's an awesome movie. You made a great movie.
Wow.
From memory. I hope I'm not misquoting. Yeah. That'll be horrible. But
no, because I mean, there is an interview. It's just a brief red carpet interview with Ridley where he does say, he won't reveal what notes he gave and things like that. But
sure.
From what you're saying, it doesn't really sound like when a cut was revealed, when a cut was shown.
Yeah.
It sounds like all the notes were pre-edit.
Could have been.
Basically.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have had notes. I mean, he loves to talk. So he would have had something to say. But again, I can tell you now, Fede probably would have just had nothing but reverence for that. He just would have thought, wow, okay, thanks for your input. That's a really good insight.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I guess because I think people are expecting deleted scenes, and I think it doesn't sound like there will be many. To be fair,
yeah,
if
and
if this ever gets a physical release,
God, I wish there would, bro. Yeah, I love physical media. No, but also, man, budgetarily speaking, I don't know. And again, he's a great filmmaker in that he can just make films, and they normally make bank, and that's why the studio
mm,
is they like him. And I don't think there was much fat that where he was just
mm.
like, oh, I wanted to try this, and we did it, but it didn't quite work out. I mean, I'm sure there's bits and pieces, but for the most part, he was. From what I could tell, it was basically the script that I read.
Okay, wow, yeah, no, great. I think people will be surprised by that, but
Yes,
good,
yes, yeah,
because
yeah,
that just means that the end product is from its inception point
yeah, yeah.
as it's supposed to be, which is a good thing,
A
quite
little bit of
frankly.
integrity, right? Like we kind of ran
Yeah,
out of that. Like there's, they used to want to make a great movie. To make a great movie, they used to go, well, what we need first, man, is we need a great script. And they'll get a great script. They go,
mm,
now this script is great. Now
yeah,
what we need is great talent. Let's find an actor who's perfect for this. Wow, we got this actor. We got Jack Nicholson. All right, man. Now what we need is a release date. Now everything's going to work
mm,
perfectly. Now it is literally in the studio system. It is literally the opposite. They will come
I
up with a
know.
release date, touch the talent, and then write the script, which is an act of profound idiocy.
Oh, it's creative vandalism,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
genuinely.
Uh,
They're just shooting themselves in the foot
Yeah,
every
and
single time they do.
it's a false economy, man. Like I know that there's money involved, and so they're desperate to make that money. But that's shelf life speaks more than just a flash in the pan, horrible like a Borderlands kind of experience.
Yeah,
Like it's just a horrible. Like no one's interested in that. So
yeah. Well, the audiences are very wise to it now as well.
I agree.
The studios cruised on that for probably about a decade now. They've been
Yeah.
cruising on that sort of attitude.
Yep.
Um, but the audiences, maybe it's oversaturation of these films.
Hmm.
Maybe it's the audiences, the economic climate.
Yeah.
It could be, it's probably multifaceted, but the audience is well aware of it,
Yeah.
and that's why you're seeing, movies lose upwards of like $100+ million.
Pretty scary, man.
People are just wise to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there's that thing where you attach an actor before you've written a script. I mean, you can see where the economy is, right? Like it's
Mm,
that famous economy. It's not a storytelling economy, and that man,
yeah,
that's like it's crushing for the art that, or at least that's what I subscribe to. And the killer for me, man, is like you can still find a great indie movie that costs $5 million to make. You can still watch a movie like that and find that, and then you could also
mm,
fluke like $100 million movie where you go, oh, that was pretty good too. But then all of the stuff in the middle now is just decimated. It's just gone. So
yeah,
that's what.
yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
no, you're completely right, and I think the age of the movie star is over anyway. Quite frankly, very
yeah,
very seldom do people go to the theaters to watch a movie star. Like there is no real movie stars anymore, especially since and I'm not going to push this conversation in that direction, but just as a segue,
yeah,
briefly, the age of the movie star is over, predominantly because of social media
yeah,
and the polarization of movie stars' political nature.
yeah.
And
Well,
I'm not getting political, don't
sure.
want to do that. But
No,
that
but
definitely has an impact because
yeah,
it is divisive.
yeah. Like Kurt Russell was saying, like they just talk too much. And
Yeah.
and they do like that. It's I mean, it can happen to any one of us really, but that idea that you could kind of feel a little bit more important than you really are because people are listening to you doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily, it doesn't really translate to genuine wisdom. But what do I know, man?
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we've been talking for quite a while, but I do wanna get your brief experience and I guess your thoughts. Because you worked on Alien Covenant. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't,
Sure.
talk to you about that and talk to you about interacting with Ridley Scott and
Yeah.
just all of those things as well. I think.
Yeah, man. That was a dream come true. Like I was nervous getting that job. Like the art department was already like full. I was up for a job in the art department, and I kind of fell to the bottom of the pack actually, and the other guys were just so like great. I was like, oh shit, man, I'm not going to get a run. I left Hacksaw Ridge early to do it, and so I missed like 6 weeks wage, like just sitting around waiting for him to confirm me. And then what happened was that bit came up in the script where it was like, it was regarded as like 25 images or something like that. And the set decorator was like, man, we got to try to get this guy in. And man, I'll be honest with you, out there in the world, everyone really likes the work that I did on that. It's like quill and ink and charcoal, but I'd not really played with those mediums before, you know, I'm
Really?
yeah, no, man, I'm such a fake. I'd never done it, but I just walked into that room. I was like, yeah, I'll do it, man. Yeah, I'll give this a crack.
I don't think that's fake. I think that's, from my perspective, that would be a sign of raw talent more than anything else.
That's what I was trying to get you to say. Thank you. No, no, I was terrified, man. And you know, they were referring to Rembrandt. Like Ridley wanted me to draw this shell, this Rembrandt conch shell. And I didn't give a shit about this shell. So I started drawing and I was like, oh, this is bullshit, man. Now I'm just going to draw some Giga like in charcoal. So I did that. So I came in with this big Giga piece and I go, oh, here. And they go, okay, yeah, we can see you can do that. Where's the conch shell? I'm like, who cares, bro? Look at that. Like, I can do that. And they go, and then the set decorator, Victor, he goes, nah, man, I'm telling you, like, Ridley wants to see you draw this fucking shell. I'm like, oh, all right, man. Okay. So I did it on the weekend. I did it and I brought it in. He goes, yeah, all right. Now you got the job. You're the guy. I was like, okay, all right, sweet, man. So like I said,
just on the strength of the shell.
Yeah, no, but I kind of knew from the Giga stuff. I knew I was going to, you know, but yeah. And then another artist, Matt Hatton, also joined in as well. And he was, he mostly did the deformed shore stuff at the end. So he sort of managed to get the starring role of that stuff where I've sort of filled out the space. I was more like a churn and burn machine kind of thing, you know, where I would just, man, I was probably doing a drawing a day, maybe a drawing and a half. And I was cutting every corner I could. And oh, man, it's hard. Filmmaking, you got to pick and choose where you can spend like the time economy. You got to pick and choose what's going to give an audience reaction, you know, like of 50, it's like zombies, right? You've got hero zombies and you've got the background zombies, you know, and you know, filling a room like that was exactly the same thing. There was things I was proud of, things I was ashamed of, but I had no time to stop and care. I just had to pack the room with information, and I, you know, it was good, man. And that day when they shot the lab set, that was my set. When they shot that, I went home and I fucking spewed in the bath. I was like so tight. I was so tightly wound. I didn't realize. I was just like, oh, I feel. Oh man. So yeah, I was super nervous. You know, at that time, I mean, look, Covenant is pretty divisive, and I think there's a couple of choices made in that they don't hit for everyone, and I completely understand that. I have my own personal views, but I'm very attached to it. I can't, you know, not, you know, be in it and of it, you know. So anyway, but I absolutely loved my time on it, man. It was about 9 months of 7 days a week, about 16 hours a day. Like,
wow,
it was full on,
yeah,
man. It was full on. And then that's when.
What was? Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, no, you go, man.
I was just going to say, what was the direction behind the sketches and the experiments? Like, what was it? What was it? What was Ridley's thought process? If you were privy to that.
Well, that was, yeah, man. That was the best part. Was it started off where potentially, in theory, the designer would also try to have a say in what is going to be the right drawings for this experience. But because the volume increased so massively, the amount of drawings, it was, so long as they could trust that we already had the style down, which was the quill and ink Rembrandt style and the charcoal style, right? So long as the style was down, do whatever you want. You know, now, of course, whatever I want was already appropriate because it was like facehuggers and, you know, deformed faces and all this medical shit, you know. And, but so it wasn't like I was going to start drawing a fucking like a house or something, or some architecture or something that wouldn't be relevant. You know, I was already passionate about exactly what they needed, and so
Yeah.
and that's a little bit like Fury Road. It was like that as well, where it's like, if I've already caught the attitude, right? Like I already know what the director wants, then I don't need any notes, you know. And that's
Yeah, you just run with it.
that's right, and that's the designers making that call. It's not like everyone gets to just go,
Mm.
I could do whatever I want. It's not that. It's like, well, the designer knows, fuck, man, if you make it, I know the director's gonna like it because he's got a thing for your style or your brand or your taste. Go nuts, you know. And
Yeah.
those are the best jobs, man. They are the best. So Covenant was, again, not as well received as Romulus, but for me, just one of the best experiences of my life, man. It was like that, and Fury Road, and even Furiosa didn't go very well, but you know, I still got to do whatever I wanted to do. I could just do, and I got paid to do it. And at this point, like, there's a community of people that appreciate what I was doing. So, frankly, it's I don't know how many people get to live a life where they have this experience. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It just feels
Yeah, no,
amazing.
that's true.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, well, so then you're probably best placed to give us a peek behind the curtain of David's experiments. So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was he doing?
Well, I get asked this a lot, man, because obviously the lore gets totally, like, it goes nuts, man. When you take Covenant into, if you fold Covenant into the alien world, then the lore gets very muddy, you know. And everyone's favorite question to ask is, did David create the xenomorph, right?
Wow.
But I can
Yeah.
tell you, based on the script, that is what it was inferring, that he created it, you know, that those experiments and then experimenting on shore was to create the perfect organism, and that's in theory what he was doing, and that xenomorph that you see, that protomorph, is the first xenomorph. Now, we both know, because we're fans, that you already saw that appear in Prometheus. You see that statue, that sculpture where you see the xenomorph face. So it's funny, man, because you just, like, I don't know how much of it is just Ridley flying by the seat of his pants, and how much of it was like deeply considered, you know. Like, on one hand, you have a Fede who's like got nothing but reverence for everything that's come before. On the other hand, you've got Ridley, who is a fantastic filmmaker, and why would anyone like stop him or try to guide him if he was the one that sort of brought this into the world? So he can kind of make up those things as he goes along, you know. And like, you know, like, I remember at that time there was a thing going where he was like talking about facehuggers. He goes, and we're going to see this one, we're going to be able to see the facehuggers like run around, and everyone's like going, yeah, and he goes, you know, because you've never seen that before. And then I'm like thinking, okay, I see what's going on here. Yep. All right, no worries. So, you know, so yeah, like, you kind of think, I don't know, man, how much of that stuff was he just like compelled as a filmmaker, as an artist, like compelled to do, you know, and to try, which, man, there's so much of it works out, so much of it does work, but some of it just kind of, I don't know, it's hard, man. There's alien fans, there's science fiction fans, and there's movie fans, you know. And I think, and Ridley knows, man, he's a fantastic producer, and he's out there to land all that stuff. That's why he works so prolifically, man. The guy.
Yeah, he does. He, especially for, you know, not to demean someone for their age, but for his age, I mean, he's doing things, you know, people half of his age would not keep doing now. I mean, he's constantly doing it. So I'll give him his dues there.
Yeah.
Were they engineers then on that planet?
Yes, but they were not the same colony of engineers. So you know, again, this one comes up all the time. I mean, it would make sense to me that you would want to go back to the engineer home planet, but this was not the engineer home planet. It was a colony of the engineers on a different planet. And the way that the culture was described to me was they're beyond commerce. That's why they're now just in the arts, in a way. That's why it looked like what it looked like, where you know, you got beautiful, like, it's kind of like if we as a species, we're not as hell-bent on being wealthy enough so that we could look after our family. Like, just imagine that was removed from the equation. Then we could delight in like a like we could delight in like making a civilization that really honored the arts. You know, there'd be beautiful buildings, there'd be
Mm.
ecological choices being made. You know, like to help promote like wildlife breeding and all that kind of shit. You know, and that was how it was kind of sold to me. And like because I started off drawing instruments, like there was instruments that was going to be around one of the sets, and they wanted these ancient kind of like flavor to everything. So I was researching all these like the first instruments, which were bone flutes. So that's where you got
Mm.
that bone flute from, David. um I'll do the fingering. So
That line.
yeah.
Oh, goodness me.
So funny, man. The best line is "That's the spirit" when he jams the nail up the
Yeah.
thing, which is a nod to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah,
interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. You know, we've talked for a very long time. And I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I had to ask those things just because it's fascinating.
yeah,
You know, I mean,
man.
I've done videos where I'm like, oh, you know, there were two different sort of caste systems of engineers. You know, ones
Yeah,
which are bioengineered for more war, and then, you know, I sort of went in my head canon. I went that route
yeah,
because I
yeah.
thought that kind of made more sense. But
And why wouldn't you? I
that's
mean,
interesting.
I think it's left like that, right? Like, so the final movie presents it in a way where you're gonna ask those questions, which
Mm,
is fun, but you know, like obviously behind the scenes when we're given the script or we're talking either directly to Ridley or to the production designer or the set decorator, then they're giving us the information that Ridley's been saying, which is
mm,
like where he will just like you don't know, man. Maybe it was off the cuff. Maybe he's making it up on the day and he changes his mind the next day. But when I was present, when I heard what I heard was, there was that colony thing, and that's established in Prometheus that they would go to planets
mm.
and colonize, and so yeah, it's funny, man. Like my sort of biggest problems is like I like unanswered questions. That's totally fine, but I don't like
Mm.
deliberately raising questions in the
Yes.
interest of making it interesting. Like all you had so many questions during Alien when you see the space jockey, when you see the Juggernaut, when you see the planet, you've got questions, man. But
Mm,
those we know that those questions had been answered, but we just didn't know who to ask at that time, as
mm.
opposed to if you just like the black stuff has just got no rules. Like that's what Romulus kind of brought that back in, but in Prometheus, it's got no rules. It's got no like,
Yeah.
which is the worst kind of element in a story, which is like it's like because you've got should you be afraid or should you be happy about it or like what is it? It's not as a species we grab onto patterns, and if you haven't
Mm.
if you're not going to do that just for the sake of being cool, it doesn't work, man.
Yeah, it's a MacGuffin, isn't it? It's just, well, we're just gonna. It's a plot device. It's a be all and end all. We can do anything we want with this.
Yeah, yeah,
We need to take the story this direction. Cool. We've got the black goo. It's
exactly.
fine.
Get out of jail free as
Yeah.
well, just like, oh, just do that with
Yeah.
it, like. So anyway,
Yeah.
but look, man, so I got my problems with those movies, but it's funny with Covenant. Like there was a huge man, like some devout fans, like have contacted me and they want to talk to me about this stuff, which I'm happy to do because I love aliens, so that's great. But
Mm.
with Romulus, though, man, it's like unanimous like love. Like everyone's just like exploding, like, and just wants to tell, like, man, wow, that was such a great movie. And like I said, I'm just so happy for Fede and his
Yeah.
like sort of his friends and family, like the people that have supported him into this world, because this is like I'm just so happy for him, man. It's just great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, likewise, I share those sentiments. Just because, especially being an Alien fan, and just what a great return to form.
Mm,
Whether you like or dislike the movie, you can't argue it's been a great success.
yeah, that's right.
It's
Yeah,
what the franchise needed. It needed a big boost, and
yeah,
hopefully, a great sign to the studio just to do more. Like the beast is not dead.
yeah, yeah,
Do more, keep
yeah,
making more.
yeah. The beast. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's been great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
I mean, I'm going to leave your socials down below, so your sort of social media things down below in the description box. Do you want to? Is there anything you want to promote? Anything you're working on that you want to highlight? Is there anything,
Um,
can anyone buy prints from you?
uh,
Promote some stuff, I guess.
well, I have a show tomorrow actually where I'm gonna sell some prints, but I'm only gonna sell it at the show. And look, man, I gotta say sort of publicly as well, but everyone wants to buy stuff from me. It's obviously complicated because of Disney, but I don't necessarily have to honor that machine necessarily. But also, I'm very bad at replying to emails, so I sort of don't sell a lot of stuff. But when I do, like I'll promote it, and I normally promote it on Instagram.
Okay.
I have a Facebook page, but I mean, look, I visit it occasionally. Like, there's a big following there, but a lot of sort of like active people don't really use Facebook as much anymore.
Yeah.
And I had a website, but I just let it I let it kind of fester, and I don't really look after it because I just can't, man.
Instagram, right?
Oh man, and also, but like sometimes I'm on so many movies at the same time that I forget that I worked on them. Like, and they come out, and then like and I want to be excited about it, and I want people to be excited about it, so I want to share the stuff, but I just forget. And so look, I mean, at that point, I'm not going to be updating my website with that stuff. But look, yeah, man, look, thanks for asking. I definitely, when the time comes, I will sell stuff. I'm thinking about doing Monster Palooza next year, where I'll just do like a whole bunch of prints. And yeah, but other than that, man, you just keep an eye on Instagram, and I'll talk shit, and yeah. I did make a short film a couple years ago that I still send people to, just because I'm really proud of it. And I'm a filmmaker as well, so I'm always working on my own projects. And luckily for me, I can talk to Fede about stuff like that, or try to get into the ears of Ridley Scott and get him to give me money, like to make projects.
What was the short film called?
Oh yeah, it's called Ranker. It's on YouTube now. You can watch it on the Alter channel. But I guess maybe I'll just give you the link. But I don't know. That's my little love letter. Yeah, that's my little love letter to all the movies that I love. So
excellent. All right. Excellent stuff. Yeah. Well, everyone, I will leave Instagram down below, short film down below. And you are going to be releasing. I don't know when I'm going to be able to release this because I've got some editing to do and
sure.
put it together and things. So, but over the next presumably few weeks, you're going to be updating your Instagram with a lot more of the sort of behind the scenes concept work on Romulus, aren't you?
Whoring myself out, man. You got it.
Excellent. So another reason to go give Dane a follow. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Thank you. Thanks so much, man. Great, insightful questions. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thank you.
You got it.